Viewers, before we get rolling, drop your location and the local time where you're watching from. It's always wild seeing just how far a good Texas story can travel. So, picture this. Ezra Thornfield's been on the road since dawn, hauling 30 head of prime Black Angus from Abilene back to his family ranch in Millbrook County, a spread that's been there since his grandfather carved it out of stubborn dirt and bigger dreams in '62. He crests that last bend toward home, the same gravel road his granddad laid stone by stone, and nearly spills coffee all over the dash of his father's old '87 Ford because right there, 8 feet high, smelling like fresh lumber and arrogance, stands a brand-new privacy fence stretched across Cottonwood Creek Road like a barricade in some bad western. And it's not just blocking the HOA subdivision. This is his driveway, his lifeline, the artery that feeds cattle, hay trucks, vet visits, and 60 years of family work. Vivian Blackwood's on the other side, clipboard in hand, wearing designer athleisure like she's headed to Pilates, but really just training for her next hostile takeover. She's flanked by 2 HOA board members who look like they'd rather be anywhere else, and she calls it a security improvement. Historians still argue whether she meant security for the subdivision or her own ego, but either way she tells Ezra Hill, need alternative property access, like it's a friendly suggestion. He tells her it's his family's road. She corrects him, calls it was, and that's when the cattle in his trailer aren't the only ones fuming. By that night, over leftover pot roast, Sarah, his wife, local veterinary legend, and the quiet storm in this whole affair, slides him a business card for a county permit inspector. Ezra knows right away what she's thinking. See, Vivian might have that law degree and HOA seal, but she apparently skipped the chapter about permits for anything over 6 feet. One phone call later, Inspector Rodriguez shows up at the shiny Willowbrook gate, sees the fence, and slaps a stop work order on it so fast it might as well have been a duel at high noon. The fence violates setback rules, blocks an established easement, and suddenly Vivian's perfect manicure is gripping that clipboard a little too tight. Ezra figures maybe that'll end it, but suburban entitlement doesn't tap out so easily. Within days, Vivian calls an HOA war council, talking about sabotage and proposing a second fence at the property line. That's when Ezra's neighbors, the ranching kind who measure loyalty in pickup trucks, start lining up. By sunrise Saturday, 23 diesel engines are idling down County Road 47 for what they politely call an educational convoy. Air horns blast at 6:15 a.m. sharp, rattling windows in Willowbrook Estates. Sheriff Patterson later says honking isn't illegal. Maybe Vivian should invest in better windows. Ezra's not done. Sunday afternoon, 40 Longhorns take a slow legal stroll past those manicured patios, leaving behind the kind of authentic Texas aroma no HOA brochure will ever brag about. Vivian thinks she can outlawyer Ezra, but she doesn't know Sarah's been reading deed records since she was old enough to work a photocopier for her dad's surveying business. 2 hours into digging through musty Millbrook County files, she surfaces with a faded 1967 federal document. Turns out Granddad didn't just build the road with his own hands. He took a federal agricultural improvement grant to do it, and those grants come with permanent conditions. Agricultural vehicle access must remain open forever. Historians still argue whether forever means until the sun burns out or just until the last cow leaves Texas, but in this case, it's the former. Blocking that road isn't just petty. It's a federal violation that could cost the HOA hundreds of thousands with decades of interest. Ezra's lawyer, Garrett, grins like he's holding 4 aces. They start documenting everything. Damaged cattle, spoiled hay deliveries, vet bills from a prized bull injuring himself on the detour route. Meanwhile, Sarah finds an environmental lawyer who confirms another dagger in Vivian's plan. The fence sits on an intermittent waterway, which under state regs is basically a protected wetland. That means potential fines big enough to make an HOA budget cry. Vivian doesn't flinch, at least not publicly. She tries tax games, convincing her golf buddy assessor to reclassify the ranch at commercial rates, quadrupling Ezra's property taxes without ever inspecting the place. Appeal hearing blows that apart in one afternoon. Then Sarah finds Vivian's real Achilles heel. She's a disbarred California lawyer, booted for embezzling $250,000 from an elderly client. Texas law says HOA officers have to disclose criminal convictions. Vivian never did. The neighbors start to turn, especially after she calls for a $5,000 special assessment to fund legal battles, conveniently awarded to her brother-in-law's fence company. 3 board members resign, a treasurer quits, and whispers spread about kickbacks. Then comes the Heritage Barbecue on Ezra's pasture. 60 neighbors, brisket, beer, and old-timers with photo albums of the road dedication in '62. 84-year-old Pete Morrison tells how Granddad swore this road would serve the community for generations, and even the most HOA-loyal folks look like they just realized they've been on the wrong side of history. Garrett's paralegal Lisa then hits gold. The original Willowbrook Development Agreement, misplaced in the wrong cabinet. Buried in Section 12 is a clause saying the subdivision can't interfere with existing agricultural operations, violated, and the county can yank occupancy permits for all 127 homes. Vivian knew about it from the start. Emails prove it. That's not just sneaky, it's legal malpractice. Combine that with her mortgage in default and an $850,000 restitution bill from her past crimes, and the picture is clear. Ezra doesn't have to win this in a sprint. He just has to survive while she burns through her own fuse. Survival turns into offense the night Ezra wakes to cattle bellowing like a fire alarm. Water lines cut, tanks drained dry, bolt cutters catching the infrared light on his security cameras. Sheriff Patterson shows up at dawn with fingerprint matches to none other than Vivian Blackwood. Destruction of property and agricultural terrorism aren't just mean, they're felony grade in Texas. That's when the floodgates open. Flyers accuse the ranch of spreading disease. The health department gets anonymous contamination reports, and Sarah's veterinary license faces a formal investigation based on fake complaints. Ezra liquidates a dozen prime cattle after the bank, tied to Vivian's in-laws, suddenly calls in his loans. Then someone stages dead saltwater fish in Cottonwood Creek to frame him for pollution. A stunt so sloppy the EPA inspector laughs out loud. Vivian tries for an emergency restraining order, claiming cattle could endanger school kids. The judge, a former rancher, throws it out before lunch. But the real tipping point is a recording of Vivian talking about burning the fence and blaming fire hazards. That earns her an arrest warrant for terroristic threats and conspiracy to commit arson. The HOA board suspends her. Her husband files for divorce. FBI agents roll up before dawn one Wednesday, hauling boxes of evidence from her McMansion while she stands cuffed in designer pajamas. News crews eat it up. Hashtags like #RanchJustice trend nationwide, and agricultural groups hold solidarity rallies. The new HOA leadership folds fast, offers $275,000 in settlement plus all attorney fees, schedules fence removal, and hosts Ranch Appreciation Day, with tours, barbecue, and kids petting calves where the barricade once stood. From there, it snowballs. Creek restoration earns state awards. The ranch becomes a conservation partner, and the Thornfield Standard for easement protection starts showing up in property law classes. Sarah's heritage tours draw weekend crowds. Partnerships with agricultural associations turn the ranch into a model of coexistence. Willowbrook property values rise, proving authentic rural character can boost, not tank, a neighborhood. Vivian gets 18 months in federal prison and a permanent ban from any legal work. Her case now a cautionary slide in legal ethics lectures. Ezra's mornings return to coffee on the porch, watching cattle graze where they've belonged for 6 decades, smart gate system clicking open for the right vehicles and keeping the wrong ones out. He tells visitors what his grandfather told him, that defending land isn't just about property lines, it's about defending a way of life. And sometimes, David still beats Goliath, especially when David's got better lawyers, a smarter wife, and neighbors who know the value of a road built with calloused hands. The sun settles soft over Cottonwood Creek Road, open to all who belong there, just like Granddad planned. The lesson lingers in the warm air. Progress without respect is just conquest. But when you mix grit, law, and a little Texas humor, you can turn a fence meant to shut you out into a gate that lets the whole community in. The months after the settlement move slower, softer, like the land itself exhaling after a long storm. Morning mist rolls low over the pastures, blurring fence posts into watercolor strokes. Ezra's old Ford idles in the driveway, that welded-in coffee mug still in place, as he leans on the hood and listens to the cattle shift and breathe. Somewhere in the kitchen, Sarah hums over the clink of mugs, the smell of fresh coffee drifting out the screen door, mingling with mesquite and damp earth. Neighbors wave again when they drive by. Real waves, not the stiff nods of a Cold War. And sometimes they stop just to talk about the weather or the latest calf born under the big oak. The road itself feels different now, not just because the smart gate hums when it opens, but because it carries a kind of shared ownership, a recognition that this stretch of gravel is more than convenience. It's history in motion. The legal files sit boxed in the office, labeled and stacked, but untouched for weeks. Ezra knows they'll stay there, a quiet reminder that battles can be won without losing yourself. The scholarships from the settlement are already helping local kids, and the ranch tours have a waiting list so long it'll run into next spring. There's peace in knowing the place is secure, that the land will stay in family hands for as long as anyone can imagine. And when the sun dips low, lighting Cottonwood Creek in ribbons of gold, Ezra sometimes thinks about Vivian, not with anger, but as a necessary chapter in the ranch's story. Because without her, they might never have built the alliances, never strengthened the community, never turned a fight over a fence into a legacy worth passing on.